How's it out there? Welcome back to Orca. If this is your first time here and you've never seen any of my videos before, but you like what I do and you want to see more of that, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Today I have 5 tips that will help you step your Lightroom game up and one little controversial one that I'll save for the end. But today it'll be a quick one. I'm going to use 5 photos to illustrate exactly what I'm talking about, and let's get right into it. So the first photo I have here is not the greatest compositionally, but what I wanted to show you is the HSL blocks. So hue, saturation, luminance. Most of you out there probably already make use of this, but if you don't, I definitely want you to start doing so. So if you take a look at this photo right here, we have the rainbow, and that's the main reason why I chose this photo, because it will make it very easy for me to show you exactly what the Hsl Tabs blocks will help you do. So on the right side, you have this HSL color block right here. Okay. Within it, you have all the colors of the rainbow, all the main ones: red, orange, yellow, green, aqua, blue, purple, and magenta. Okay. Now if we click on, let's say, the blue tab, let's say we're looking at this photo and we don't really like how much blue is in here. We can focus in specifically on that one color without affecting the other ones too much. So if you look right here where most of the blue is, and in the sky really, as I pull this saturation down, all of that blue gets taken away. And vice versa, if I pull this slider all the way up, all the way to the right, you see that the blues are now drowning out the entire photo. Same idea with all of the other colors. If I go to yellow and I pull the saturation out, you see that the yellow area right here is taken out. So using these HSL blocks allows you to pinpoint exactly which colors you want to affect, whether you want to affect the saturation of that color. So let's say you're in like a really green area, lots of grass, lots of green trees, and the green is really taking away, it's distracting from your main subject. Let's say you have like a yellow blooming tree. There's some yellow flowers on there, you want to focus in on that, but you have all of this bright green around it, and you don't want to desaturate the entire photo, but you do want to make that green a little less distracting. You can go in here, select the green HSL tab, and then pull down the saturation of just that green. Now another way you can use this tool is by adjusting the hue. Now in each of these tabs, you'll see that on the left side is the nearest color on that side, and on the right side of that slider is the nearest color on the other side of that color wheel. So as again, we're going with the blues because there's so much in here, it's easy to show you. Now if I pull this hue slider to the left, you can see that a lot of these blues are moving closer to aqua, a little more aquamarine type of color. And if I pull it further to the right, it's going to get deeper in the blues, closer to purple. So we can also manipulate, so we can use this tool, this slider, to manipulate the different types of shades of colors, different hues. And then luminance is just talking about how bright this color is. So what luminance is doing is it's taking all of the pixels from that color that you have set up here, and it's brightening it up. So if you can see here, as I take away the luminance, that blue gets a little darker, and as I add in some luminance, it gets white basically. Whew, sorry, it is hot in here. I got lights on me. I shouldn't be wearing this hoodie, but I am. So excuse me if I start sweating throughout this video. That's the reason why. It's hot in here. That is the main reason why I want to point out the HSL tool, the HSL boxes. If you haven't been using it, go ahead, experiment with it, play around with it. I guarantee you it'll change up everything you do in regards to color. The next photo we have here is this photo of this mossy rock that I took on a hike I did out in Kaneohe. I go out there a lot because that's just, I don't know, I like the environment out there. If you want to see how I get those photos in the field, go ahead and check out one of these videos of one of my hikes, and you can see exactly what I do, where I go, and yeah. Tip number 2, don't be afraid of using the masks tool. All right, so up here in Lightroom, you have 3 different masks. You have a linear mask, which is like rectangle shaped, so I can show you that right here. Linear, straight lines. Okay. Then you have a radial mask, which is circular, right? So if I want to pinpoint one area, I'll use that circle. And then you have your brush, and that brush is more of a specific mask where you can pinpoint particular areas within a photo. Okay. What I'm encouraging you to do is don't be afraid of layering on masks, but most people stick to 1 or 2 and don't really layer on multiples of each type of mask. You don't always have to use a lot of masks, but I don't want you to be afraid of doing that. So in this photo, I want to draw a lot more attention to this rock. In the photo itself, luckily, I already got some light landing on top of the rock. I want to accentuate that just a little bit more. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this radial mask so I can pinpoint it exactly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it, reshape it, make it wider, make it smaller, do whatever it is I need to do for it to nicely fit around the subject I want it to fit around. And then after I have exactly the look or the coverage I want, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this exposure and bring that up a little bit, well, a lot. That way everything outside of that circle is darker and the point that I selected, the rock with the moss on it, it's brighter. Next thing I want to do is everything up here on the top side of the photo, I also want to darken a little bit more. So I'm going to come in with a linear mask. So I'm going to layer on a linear mask on top of that radial mask that I just put on. So again, I'm going to select the area that I want to use or the area that I want to cover with the mask. Then I'm going to just gradually bring it up. And right now I'm using the exposure slider kind of like the opacity slider in Photoshop. I'm just bringing it up so I can show a little bit more of the background, making this filter into like a screen sort of thing, right? So the top, it's a little bit darker. I think I'm going to bring it this way down a little bit more. There you go. I want to accentuate this light line right here, this reflection of the rock in the water. So I'm going to do is I'm going to get another graduated filter, bring it in, another linear filter, bring it in from the bottom, and make it match up right about where that reflection line is in the water. And once I have that there, again, I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit. And that's about it. So now we have this photo, what we had before this, and it's okay, it works. The photo works, but everything else, because it's so properly exposed, it's distracting. It takes away from my focus on that rock. And by layering on the different types of filters, the different types of masks, you are able to bring the focus in a lot more onto your subject in a cleaner way than just using a vignette. Don't be afraid of using your mask. Tip number 3 that I got for you is a quick little tool. We've all gone out, taken a photo of a sunset, of some sort of scene, and there's a clean horizon line, but the photo is a little crooked. If we take it handheld, that's natural, and because of post-processing, it's not that big of a deal. Now, what most people would normally do is they would go into that crop tool in Lightroom, they would go to the corner here, and they would kind of eyeball it and they would just make it straight according to the grid line and as best as their eyes can see. And for the most part, that works. But what I'm going to show you is how you can use a tool in Lightroom to make a clean horizon line using the lines in the photo itself. So go back into the crop tool. Instead of going to a corner and adjusting, you click this button right here. It looks like a level, and then that gives you this cursor. What you're going to do is you're going to look for a clean line in your photo, a clean line that should be perfectly horizontal that you can trace. So in this photo, I have the horizon line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select from here, hold down the mouse, find another point later on. I'll just go all the way down to the end of the photo. And then once I have it lined up to my liking, I'm going to let go of the mouse, and Lightroom has lined up my photo and made it level. Kinda. You might have to go in there, do a little bit of tweaking, but for the most part, it gets it pretty close. Where you will find a little difficulty using this tool is with ultra wide lenses. Now, when you use really wide lenses, what happens to the image is that it starts to bow, it bends at the corner, because that's just how it naturally works with the glass. And when you do that, if you're going to trace the horizon in an ultra wide image, it's not going to be really straight because of that natural bow. So you may not be able to use this tool in that situation, but for product photography, definitely for architecture, like finding a clean line in the building that you want to make level, you can use that. There's a lot of situations where you can use this tool. The next tip I have for you is to pay attention to your histograms. Pay attention to them. So if you look at this photo right here and you look at our histogram up here in the top right corner, those of you who do not know what a histogram is, in the photo world, it basically compares your darks to your midtones to your lights, and it shows you how much of each is within your photo. So if you look at my histogram here for this image, a lot of my photo is towards the darker side. Not too many whites, not too many light grays in this photo. So on the right side where they're talking about the whites of the image, there's not a lot there. Now when you use your histogram, usually you want a balanced photo. So by using your histogram, if I were to not pay attention to it at all and I just snapped it, I'd be like, okay, I got this photo, I can bring it back in post. Sure, you probably could, but looking at this histogram right here, you can tell your photo is really, really underexposed. So you might want to bring up your exposure a little bit. So you can see that that was super underexposed. Now, vice versa, I also could have it all the way on the right side. And this is what you really don't want to do. You really don't want to overexpose your photos, because if you overexpose it, it's way harder for your camera and software to pull back detail from things that are blown out. It's a lot easier for it to pull back things from things that are super dark than things that are super light. So again, pay attention to your histogram so you can get a decently balanced photo. So if we look at the original image, it's not that off, but we can improve it a little bit more. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to come down here to the whites and the blacks slider. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, depending what kind of keyboard you have, and I'm going to slide my black slider until I can see just a few of these, I don't know what you would call them, I'll just call them artifacts, these artifacts showing up on this white screen. So when that shows up, it's showing you which things are clipping. So all those yellows and those dots that you see on the white screen right there, that's telling me what is completely clipped and it's completely black. So I see a few, I'm happy with that right there. Now same thing with the whites, hold down Alt or Option and you slide it. As you slide it to the right, you can see how the whites are coming in or getting clipped. So now that I have some of it completely white, I'm good. I don't go overboard with it, but I do make sure that I have a definite black and a definite white in my photos. Whether or not that really does anything to the eye, I don't know. Some people might not like it, but I'm gonna stick to it. So this is what we had before, and that's what we had after. You can really tell a big difference right here in the water. So as I reset it, you can see how it's all blown out. You don't see a lot of detail in there. And after just that one tweak, you have a lot more detail in the water. Last tip I have for you before our little bonus tip is the exact opposite of my last rule. Stop paying attention to the histogram all the time. Sometimes a photo can be well balanced and properly exposed, but because it is perfect in those senses, there's no emotion to it. There's no feeling to the photo. Photography in itself is an art form, and if your art isn't drawing out some sort of feeling from its viewer, are you really doing your job? Sometimes the best images are the worst technical images, but because it hits that heartstring so well, no one cares about the technicalities. So for example, we have right here, we have this sunset. I've done a little bit of tweaks. I've cropped in, I've straightened out the horizon line, and it's properly exposed right now, well, for the most part. If you look at the histogram up here, it is up and down. It's all over the place because of the types of colors that are in there and the lighting. But for the most part, it's as balanced as I could have made it in the situation. So when I look at this photo, I don't really feel anything because it's just another sunset. But if I just bring down this exposure right here, and then I come down to the whites and the blacks, and I do the same thing that I did in the previous image, I make sure that I have a definite black and a definite white point. So now if you look at this photo, after just those couple of tweaks, it just hits different. It just brings out a different feeling for the viewer because that water is so much darker. It doesn't look like the sun is setting behind the ocean, which is exactly what's happening. But what it looks like now, emotionally, is that this bright light is fading into darkness. It just hits different. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you know what I mean, but I just like it more. And that's it for our main 5 tips. Okay, and my last tip, the slightly controversial one I was talking about in the beginning of this video, is to stop buying people's presets. I see people's YouTube channels and websites and all these photographers talking about, here, buy my presets. You apply it to your photos in the right situation, you'll create bangers, it'll help you out, it's a great starting point, blah, blah, blah. They're not wrong. You really might have a great looking photo by using the presets, but what happens when you do that, you're just taking someone else's imagination. You're taking someone else's creativity and work and you're applying it onto your own, and by doing that, you're hampering your own creativity, your own imagination, your own ability to create that sort of visual effect in your mind and applying it into the program. As long as you continue buying people's presets, as long as you continue thinking that another person has everything you need, you're never going to be as good as you possibly can be. In the long run, you will be a lot better at using this program, at using Lightroom, at visualizing a photo before you even take it, because you know exactly what you can do in post, so that allows you to be a little bit more free when you're actually taking your photos out in the field. So don't buy people's presets. Sorry. And all you YouTubers out there, or just people that sell presets, I'm sorry. I don't mean to take away from your business, but I'm just trying to be honest with everybody out there. to review exactly what we went over today in the video, number one, use those HSL cubes. Use those little blocks to adjust the photos specifically and each individual color. Okay. Number two is to make sure that you are using your masks effectively. You don't have to use a million different masks. You don't have to use just one. You have to use as many as necessary to get that photo to exactly where you want it to be. If that requires 3 masks, 4 masks, 5, 1, whatever it takes, use as many as you need. Use those masks liberally. Number 3 was to use that leveling tool. Use that leveling tool to straighten out your horizon lines. Number 4 is to make sure that you're paying attention to your histogram. In most cases, having a balanced amount of darks, midtones, and lights will give you a nicely exposed photo. For the most part, that's what you want. Number 5 is the exact opposite of number 4. Don't look at your histogram all the time. Ignore it, because sometimes a properly exposed photo doesn't draw the emotion that you want from the image that you took. Sometimes you gotta drop it down real dark. Other times you need to bring it up really light to get that angelic feel. It really depends on what you're visualizing for that image. And that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed all of that and you got a couple tips out of our video, out of our time together. If you knew everything, I'm sorry, but I really appreciate you sticking around this long. Go ahead and click subscribe if you haven't done so already. Click that notification bell, hit that thumbs up if you liked the video, and until next time, be peaceful and free. See ya.